Hello. Today we're going to do a quick idea about what to do for props when we're away from the studio and we just don't have what we're used to. So the first type I want to talk about are the more sturdy substitutes you could use for a block. Now, the first thing I would recommend that you do is just look through your house with the idea of block substitutes in mind and see what, if anything, you come up with. I came up with bread pan. And mine happens to be made of glass, so it's quite sturdy. It doesn't bend in the middle as a metal pan might. And it could provide a lot of support for if I'm doing a one-handed, if I'm standing and putting even more weight on, this won't give. And also when it's on your mat, it doesn't slide. So that's a possibility. Again, look around your house. As I was taking that tour of my house, I also found a couple other things. This happens to be just a little planter that a Christmas display came in. So there was beautiful evergreens and some white flowers in it. But if you turn it over, it can become, again, a block for you. So be sure it's something sturdy. Be sure it's something where you can firmly rest your hand. And that can be really good when you're doing your balance poses, or if you are just on your knees and you want to have some support, bringing that floor up a little closer as you move forward and back. That type of thing can work very well. Now I also found a food storage container that's a little higher. I have short arms. I like things that are high, so this one could work. Holding definitely my weight. No problem, no bend, no flex, very, very sturdy. So that would be another good substitute for a sturdy block if you're going to be using it in a yoga class where you're doing balance poses and you're putting your full weight on it. Now there's some other things that can be used that aren't quite as sturdy and yet will provide you with that height in a lot of situations. The first thing I would recommend is a roll of paper towels. Now what I've done to strengthen mine is taken some tape, and I am choosing to use painter's tape because it isn't quite as sticky. Now on the roll of paper towels, it isn't going to matter. So masking tape would work. If you have duct tape, that would work. In a moment, we're going to see taping up some things that are made of fabric, and so those would not be as good if you were putting on a really sticky tape because it might leave some behind on the fabric. But these are pretty great. You can use them tall, and they're fairly sturdy when you push down. They're not too wiggly at all. But I would check it out and decide what you like. One thing I have found is that the cardboard roll gets to be just a little pushy on my hand, a little annoying. And so what I've started doing is putting a washcloth on top just for a little extra padding. Now what I think can also help make these a little more sturdy, and it's something that just kind of popped into my head yesterday when we ran out of a roll of towels, is taking, when you have an empty roll, taking that extra roll and placing it inside, sliding it through, makes things just a little more sturdy. Then on top of that, again using washcloths, what I have done is taken a cloth, folded it up a bit, and then just stuffed it in, one on one side and one on the other, so that it definitely gives more stability and more support to that roll. And when that comes in really handy is if you don't want quite all of that height from a tall paper towel, you just place them beside you on their sides. And I can feel the difference in these two, in the one that has the two cardboard rolls and the one that just has one. But they still stand up pretty well. Again, for things like if you're on the floor and you just want something for a little extra height, maybe you're doing a lizard pose and it's hard for you to get your hands to the floor. So things like this will work out very nicely and help you keep stable. Now, Another paper product that is in a lot of demand these days, so you may or may not want to sacrifice 2 of them for this, are toilet paper rolls. So again, the height is pretty good. We're right here. We're easily able to use that to support us either from standing or from seated. Another place that they can be really helpful is when you're in a cross-legged pose. Let's say maybe we're in bound angle and we want something to support our knees. That can come in very handy. Now, if you're using them, once again, where your hands are resting on them, I would recommend a piece of fabric, a washcloth, just because it pads you against that little bit of cardboard. It's not terribly hard. It just is a little annoying on your hands. So that could be something you could easily use as well. Now, other than blocks, straps are something that we use very frequently in our classes, and I had more difficulty finding something for that. My best solution that I came up with was a long scarf. So I just fold it a bit, and then I can use it to wrap around my foot for whatever, whether I'm laying on my back or out in front, and it gives me enough length to be able to do that. So that works out quite well. If you have someone in your house whose belt length is long enough, you could use a belt. I would recommend, if you can, if you have choices, a wider belt than this. Mine isn't particularly long. It's from back in the days where I had a smaller waist, and I don't wear belts now. So this one really isn't as long as I would like it to be. I would like something with a little more length. Another something that you might want to try out is a tape measure, a cloth or plastic coated tape measure. That would probably have more length. You can test and see how it feels on your foot. Again, use your imagination, look around your house. Maybe you have a spool of fairly wide, soft ribbon. That could work. You could cut yourself the length that you want and use that on your foot. So that could be really nice too. Now, for relaxation or restorative yoga, we use a lot of props, or for yin, we use a lot of props, and bolsters are big there, and it's pretty hard to do them without the bolster. So here's a couple of possibilities. They both work in the exact same way. For this one, I have taken 2 throw size blankets. So they would just be like on the end of a bed or on a couch or something like that. Now it just so happens I had 2 of the same color. So inside of this is one rolled up just as tight as you can get. And then in that case, I took a couple of rubber bands and bound the ends so that it would stay tight. Then I took the second blanket and rolled it up on top. I didn't have enough rubber bands that were big enough to go around this once it got chubbier, so I used the tape again. Here's where you can consider whether you want to use masking or painter's tape. You could also tie this up with ribbon, or you could probably do it with a piece of string or cord, just as long as it isn't something that's too rough so that when you're laying on it, it might irritate. But this makes a very nice support. It's not as firm as the bolsters we're used to, but it's pretty good. Now, if you want something longer, this is probably less than a yard long, which is shorter than most bolsters. You can look for a different size blanket. Now, this one was made out of twin size blankets. The core happens to be of a different type. It's a cotton blanket, so it rolled up pretty firm. And then it's a fleece blanket on the outside. Again, I taped it up. The taping really makes a difference, or rubber bands or ribbons or anything you want, but the binding of it makes it much firmer so that when you want to lay it down and lay yourself over it, it works for you. So there's another thing that you can use for a bolster. Now, something else that could be used, and I have some over here that would make a different size, be right back, are decorative or sofa pillows. Now, it doesn't really matter what shape yours are. These happen to be rectangular. You can stack them up and use as many as you wish. I have yet to tape these 2 together for a little bit lower lift, But I took 3 of them of that same shape and taped them all together. I've sat on this, I've laid it under my hips, I've laid it under my knees. The little bit longer bolster probably works better for under the knees so you have longer, but I can bring my feet close enough together to use this as well. So you might want to think about some pillows and putting them together in some way, binding them together in some way, and then you'll have some more lift. And it's not a bad thing to have more than one height. So then some could be under your shoulders, some could be under your feet, or you could stack them up if you need more height. Now, when you sit on them, the pressure might pop the tape. Don't worry about it. Just come back, re-tape it. It might be a plus then to have used something like ribbon instead, but this is what I had, and so I chose to use the painter's tape. Again, use your creativity. Think about what would work for you. So the last thing that I have done is really simple, taking a towel. Sorry, not quite the last thing. Both of these have to do with towels, so there's 2 of them. One I've rolled up, it's just a regular bath towel, regular size bath towel, and I have rubber band the ends of this. Now, you can do lots of different things with it. I really like it under my neck when I'm laying on the floor. It feels really good. I've also used it to support my knees when I'm in a cross-legged or a bound angle position. So that might be something. And depending on how fluffy and big your bath towels are, this could be smaller or bigger when you get done. The other thing is just taking a regular towel. And for this one, I would recommend if you have it, a beach towel, just because it gives you a little bit more size to work with. And this is more of a replacement for the blankets that we often have in class. So you could fold it up however many times you want. You can sit on it. That would be another thing you could do with this rolled one, is elevate the hips when you're in class. That's one of my favorites. It gives me better posture. So decide what you'd like to do with it, but having the one that isn't taped, that can be opened, that could be folded a second time, open up to pad your knees, open up wide at Shavasana to cover you up with. This really functions just like a towel, just like a blanket would. So think about all those, decide if any of them are worth the effort for you as you are home practicing or using video taped practices. I have been using them for about a week now, and I have found that I really do like them. They're not quite the same. They take a little getting used to, but I have enjoyed the support from them. I've enjoyed the sturdiness that some of the block substitutes have given me when doing various poses, and they are worth it for me. So I don't use all of them. I've, practiced with several of them and figured out which ones I like the best. You can figure out which ones you like the best. So I hope that these help you, and in most of the classes we have been taping that I've seen for 50 North, you're not required to use any props, and I will continue to do that in the classes I'll be teaching, but sometimes they just feel nice, just nice to have them around, and I'll mention with and without, but our restorative or relaxation class is coming up soon here that you'll be able to see online. And so it might be nice to have a few of the props handy in order to make that a more enjoyable experience as well. I hope you're all doing well, and I look forward to the day when we can meet in person. Take care.